Hello, my name is Yuri Griggs. I am in Miss Nelson's wonderful World Literature 2 class. I'm doing my oral presentation on Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass was born in 1818 as a slave in Talbot County, Maryland. During the years 1826 and 1838, he was taught to read by his slave owner's wife. He quickly escaped to the north and married Anna Mary. In 1841, Douglass gets a job as a lecturer for the Anti-Slavery Committee. Shortly after getting his job as a lecturer, he published his first book, Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave. In 1847, Douglass publishes the North Star, which was a weekly newspaper in Rochester, New York. This made him a leader for liberty and women's rights. In 1848, he attended his first women's rights convention. In 1851, he began a political action to end slavery. During the year 1855, he published his second autobiography, My Bondage and My Freedom, which helps runaway slaves find their way to freedom. In 1865, he received President Lincoln's walking stick. In 1872 through 1881, Douglass purchases a big estate in Washington, D.C. He becomes federal marshal for the District of Columbia and later a recorder of his deeds. He then publishes his third autobiography, The Life and the Times of Frederick Douglass. He then did something in 1884, that was totally unheard of. He marries a white lady, Miss Helen Pitts. He travels with her from Europe to Egypt. He then gets appointed as Minister Resident and Consul General to the Republic of Haiti. He soon resigns and comes back to his estate in D.C. In 1895, he dies on February the 20th at his Washington, D.C. residence. Douglas's first narrative, or first book, the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave, talks about his childhood, the pains, as well as the joy, mentioning the cruel treatment as a slave on a plantation. He tries to escape many, many times and was captured and punished multiple times. He then mentions how he escapes from the shackles from his last master to freedom. Douglas's second book, My Bondage and My Freedom, it continues to talk about his first book, and it gave a more up-to-date of his experiences, including traveling to England. New details arose: the death of his mother and the brutality of the whippings of his Aunt Esther. It was the same book, basically, but with a few new details. It mentioned William Freeland, who was his best master, who treated him kindly, much better than the rest of his plantation masters. It talks about how he nearly escaped death, being beaten by 4 white ship carpenters. It mentions how he moved to the north and changed his name, then married Anna. Douglas's third and last book, The Life and Times of Frederick Douglass. There were 2 editions, 1881 and 1892. The novels were divided into 3 sections: Life as a Slave, The Escape, and Life Afterwards. The book goes into detail, mentioning how the U.S. presidents and government honored him with public offices. It also went into detail of his marriage, of how the people criticized him due to him marrying a white lady. Later in the novel, it goes on to mention of how he toured Europe and Egypt, and how for the first time he was recognized as an American citizen, Mr. Douglass. Douglass had an extreme impact on his era during the events of slavery and during the transition into free African Americans. He helped many African Americans escape. He worked within many public offices, important public offices. He worked with presidents, and he worked with the presidents that helped ensure the equal rights of African Americans. But one of Douglass's most important, most significant impacts on his era, he was known as one of the nonviolent yet very extremely effective as a black civil rights activist. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you've learned something, and I hope that you enjoyed it.